Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Friday, July 4th, which means most of you are on vacation today as well as I should be, but I have a couple tires I got to put on the lawnmower for a guy. And then we're going to look at either ditching on the farm or starting to put hay on the ground. But what's today's episode going to be about? And that is used equipment. What amount do you put into it? Where do you buy it? And what's the I don't think so price point? Stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. And yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Friday, July 4th of 2025, where most of you are on vacation. Some of you having a long vacation. So what are we talking about today when it comes to price point? Here's the skivvy. Alright? Some people, it doesn't bother them to have debt. And debt isn't a bad thing if you really look at it. Debt is a bad thing when your assets are less than what your debts are. If you have $10,000 in debt and you have $15,000 in assets, you're still $5,000 ahead of the game, right? So I'm not telling you never have any debt, because I do carry debt. I just bought a new truck. It's the debt that you're comfortable with, not everybody else, what you're comfortable with. When it came to the business, one of the things that motivated me was to keep it as debt free as possible, because I knew in business, everybody had told me that debt kills a business quickly. If you get too much debt onto that business, it is destined to fail. All right, and that's why most of the videos that you see me talking about how to get into business, I'm trying to convince you to go as cheaply as possible. And the reasoning is, I don't want you to get so much debt that it sinks you. And I've seen this happen to too many of my friends that, banks and finance companies and all the rest of them are so happy to give you that loan. But it's, can you pay it back? And then can you pay it back with the interest that they're charging you? It's not free money. If somebody said, here's some free money, interest free, that's something totally different. I've got two friends that just went out and bought brand new tractors, John Deere tractors. And why'd they do it? Because they had a special running where there was no interest for 5 years, but the clinker was, which is fine, but you can't miss a payment, and you had to have it paid off for in the 5 years. All right, as simple as that. And most of the two friends of mine are the type that doubled up on their payments and got it paid off in less than 5, or will have. But I guess what I'm getting at is, you have to decide what you're comfortable with for a debt load. You may buy a new building. To you, it's a used building, but to you, it's a new building. You're going to carry a mortgage. What's the mortgage payment? Can you afford to make the mortgage payment? All this stuff comes into play. When it comes to floor planning, yes, the manufacturers are all there so helpful to get you floor planned. And what I see locally, and I can use one individual that is trying to get too big too fast. They signed on with Cub Cadet. And I am not kidding you. Today, they have over 80 riders sitting in their front parking lot. And they had 80 riders sitting in their parking lot a month ago. and they still have a bunch of them in metal crates out back. What does that tell me? It tells me that they're not getting rid of the ones they had from last year, and they're still sitting on a bunch of them from this year. And if you're watching this video, my suggestion at this point is drop the prices on them above what you paid and clear them so that you aren't sitting on them for the following year when the next floor planning starts. Because your floor planning is yearly, right? And the more you floor plan, the more units you take, the better the price point is. But if you're getting it $10 cheaper or $20 cheaper per unit and you're not able to sell that unit, you're paying interest on that unit. And it used to be that if Cub Cadet signed you on as a dealership, they'd give you so many mowers and you could turn back in the ones you didn't use or send it to a different dealer that had sold out, so on and so forth, right? But that's not the case anymore. The case is you sign on the dotted line with GE Finance, is who does most of it. And you physically are buying all those units. The manufacturer is the one pushing to get that sale through because they get paid the minute you sign that dotted line. And then they're out of the picture until the following year. You can't turn those units back in like you can parts. See, a lot of companies will take the parts back. You got to pay a certain percentage for a loss, 5-10% less than what you paid for them, but they'll take them back. Floor planning? No, not a chance. So you have two options. You can either try to find a dealer that's doing one hell of a business and low on inventory and swap them to him or sell them to him, or drop the prices and get rid of them. Or if you're not selling that many units, really think about, is it worth floor planning? That's my 2 cents on that. Now, Mark, you asked about used equipment. Absolutely. But here's the thing you have to take into consideration when you're talking used equipment. You need to buy it right, and you need to keep the cost of how much you have into it at a low entry point. I'm trying to think of the right words. When I go, because it's a twofold question, right? It's where do I find this stuff? Can anybody go to auctions? And where do you cut off when you're looking at putting in repairs on any given unit? So let's start with the first part. Where do you get it? Where do you get your machines? I've gotten them from past customers or my regular customers that are updating, that want to know if I'd be willing to buy their rider, because I've seen it every year. And because most places will not take a trade-in. Some still do, but most places don't. And I can tell you right now, the ones that do take trade-ins, they're not giving you a squat. It used to be you made your money on the used, right? And that was a car salesman. They made their money on your used vehicle is where the money was. It wasn't in actually selling you that new vehicle. It was the trade they got and then turned around and sold that and made money. With used equipment, most places are now not taking it because they're discontinuing parts availability after 4 years. So a lot of the dealerships know that after 4 years, it's hard to get parts for them. The other is they're cheaply made, so they aren't going to last that long. So if you get 4 to 5 years out of it, good chances are you've done really well in comparison to we used to keep them for a lifetime. There's still machines running today that are 50, 60 years old. That's the difference in quality. It is. Everything is so cheapy, it's throwaway now. instead of something that was good, sound investment. If you want a good, sound investment, go to a dealer and buy their better end models, not your big box stores of, Lowe's, Home Depot, Track Supply, all that. Those are cookie cutters. If you want a good model, you're going to have to go to your local dealership and step up and pay decent money for it. They're still being made, but you're going to pay for it. And back in the day, it was big money when you bought that. $1,500 would buy you a garden tractor that came with a snow blower, mower deck, 3-point. And they still kind of do that today, right? But instead of it being $1,500, which was sometimes a monthly wage, now they're 20 grand, 30 grand. Big difference, huh? So what do I look at when I'm looking to step into it? First, I'm looking to see, what does the machine need? Because here's another thing you have to keep in mind, Mark, and any of you other guys that are getting into the used equipment to buy and resell, is most of the people that buy from me expect a warranty. We're a repair shop. So if we're selling something, then it means I'm willing to stand behind it. And in the beginning, we didn't play that game. But I switched over and said, okay, I'm going to ask a little more. But yeah, I'll give you more than just a threshold. But if it's operator error and you damaged it because of something you did, then there's no warranty. But if I sold somebody a push mower and they took it home and mowed the yard and it blew up, and I can't see where it was abused, then yeah, I stand behind it. I'd give them the money back. But if I'm selling to somebody off Facebook that I don't know and doesn't know me, and I'm doing it at the house instead of at the shop, that's a little different, right? But if you're doing it at the shop and you're known in the business already as doing small engine repair, most of my customers are going to expect me to stand behind it. So what does that mean? So that means it's got to come through the shop. You're not going to catch everything, but it's coming through the shop, right? And it's going to have a full service before it leaves. And that means if it needs a blade, we throw a blade on it. If, it definitely gets an oil change, plugs, fuel filter, oil filter, all that stuff when it comes through. So you have to figure all that in. And then if you're paying somebody to do it, like I do, then you got to figure that in. So where do I cut off when it comes to my price point? Half of what I can sell it for. Not half of what a new one is. Half of what I feel I can sell that for quickly. So if I feel I can get 500 out of a mower, a riding lawnmower, quickly, then I will go up to 250 on it. And to certain ones that are my customers that take pristine care of their equipment, I give them more, but I can ask more because a customer shows up and takes a look at it and says they really took care of their machine. And I mean, I had a John Deere I bought off from a guy. It was 14 years old. He had bought it at Lowe's, and every time he mowed, he'd hook up the water to the deck so that it would rinse off the whole inside of the deck. He wouldn't mow unless the grass was really dry. And he always kept that thing undercover. It looked just like it was brand new. And I'm like, why are you getting a new one? This one here is brand new. Looking at it. I said, I'd like to update it. Because I think he's 73 or 74. But it all depends on who has it and how well they take care of it. And for one that's well taken care of, I can get $1,000 out of versus one that hasn't been for 500 or less than. where the cowl's faded, or the deck's got some dents in it, or run of the mill. So I figure half of what I can sell it for, not half of what it's worth new, half of what I can sell it for. So if I can sell it for 250 is where my max is, and that includes the service, buying it, and out the door to the customer. If you're not running a shop and you're just doing your flips from home, you can get away with, having a little less into it, because you don't need to do a service on it. You don't need to do warranty on it, as far as if it leaves, the customer is not going to be irate. But if this is something that you're doing on a regular basis, I would strongly, strongly, strongly suggest that you do a service and mechanical on it before it goes. And why do I say that? Because this day and age with social media, all it takes is one person that feels like they got screwed, and they can't wait to broadcast it on Facebook. So when it comes to that, don't ever stick somebody. And what do I mean by sticking somebody? Knowing that there is something major wrong with that piece of equipment and selling it to somebody and telling them it's fine. Honesty is the best way to go. You can play that. I honestly don't know if there's anything wrong with it. This is just the way I bought it, and I'm not making a lot on it, if that's the truth. But if you know something is seriously wrong with it, don't buy it in the first place. Or if you find out after the fact, set her aside for parts. Don't take and risk your reputation if this is something you're doing on a weekly basis to kind of supplement your income. I know a lot of guys that do that as a hobby and make extra money at it. They'll buy up these used pieces and go through them and then resell them, and they enjoy spending time in the garage puttering on stuff. And most of the guys that I know are retired now doing it. And it's very viable, to do this. But I would strongly suggest that you buy it for half of what you could sell it for. And that half means if you think you can sell it for $5, you got to get $250 at max cutoff. So that means if you bought the mower for $2 and put a $50 service into it, there's your $250. It's not $250 plus a service and all the other stuff, and then sell it. And have there been mowers I put a little bit more than that into and took less on the back end? Yes. And I've also given my really good customers breaks on used equipment. Like, hey, Eric, you wouldn't happen to have a walk behind push mower, would you? And we try to pick up those in the off season. That's the best time to get them. In the off season, and have them ready to go, because I know certain customers, they have a camp and they don't want to put their good mowers at camp. So they want just some simple push mower or some rider that doesn't look pretty but will get the job done. So there's where I sell quite a few of our units, the used ones. So that brings us to, where do we get them? Now, if you want to go to an auction, you can go to an auction. And there's two types of auctions. There's the ones that are dealer only, and then there's the ones that are open to the public. If you're a dealer and you have tax ID, you just give them your EIN number or your tax number certificate, and you won't have to pay sales tax on it. That's the only difference between a dealer and an individual buying there, is tax. All right? Anybody can buy at that auction. And it's harder for dealers, because if you get the public in there, the public doesn't see and can't get stuff at dealer cost. So they tend to run stuff up a little higher. The last auction I went to, I think I spent $2,800 in parts. And I usually end up with around $8 to $9 grand in parts of what it would have cost me to buy them. I could have bought a lot more, but what I concentrated on was what do we sell in a year? Oil filters, fuel filters, air filters, spark plugs. You know, those are the things that I concentrated on. I did buy a bunch of belts in full sizes, like, half inch by 80, 81, 82, 83. I got a bunch of those. I really didn't need them, but I got them cheap. So, but those places are the best if they're having an auction and it's all one person's stuff. If you go to like a spring consignment and a consignment auction, a lot of times people will put in their problem childs into those auctions to get rid of their crap because they're tired of working on it. So buyer beware. I've seen people put 90 weight oil in a lawnmower to keep it from knocking. Yeah. So when you pull the dipstick out and the oil doesn't drip off, good chances are they got 90 weight in it, unless it's really hot out. But most of this stuff has been toggled up to get by. So you have to be really careful. If you see the stuff on the curb, that's great because you don't have to pay anything for it. Most often it's just get rid of it. Buying it from a homeowner that went and updated theirs to a newer one, is, I buy those as well. It's all in knowing what you know you can get out of it and keeping it under half of that price. And when I say what I can get out of it, I'm looking for that one individual, all right? And that one individual will see the value in that lawnmower for what I'm asking. And I can tell you, this year we sold out of our used stuff quick. And I haven't had time to go see about buying more stuff, but we've been asked. I got one that's looking for a rider, if we can find it, and then two people that are looking for self-propelled push mowers that are 22 or bigger with a bagger. So I keep my eyes open and I write down. I've got a book, just a regular notepad that they use at school, and I write down the name and what they're looking for. So if I come across it, I'll give them a call to see if they've got it yet. If they haven't, to have them come over and take a look. So on that note, you guys have a great July 4th, and I'm pretty sure I'll be here tomorrow morning for the grind. Today I got to put tires on, do some ditching, and drop some hay on the ground. On that note, enjoy your July 4th.